much. So it's been a while since I've made a video. This was from yesterday, I believe. And so I went and got a big load from the Stave mill and brought it home, and then ended up splitting it up and taking it on to a guy right down the road from home. He actually bought 2 loads, so I gave him a discount because he's asking about a discount, and I normally don't do that, but he was literally probably 2 minutes down the road, and he bought 2. So I said, well, if you're going to buy 2, I'll give them to you for $170 rather than $200. And there wasn't much gas involved in the delivery. So, but here it is after the wood that I split. Didn't really take too long. As you can see, the weather's changed a lot. This year has really been the busiest year I've had in a while, and a big part of it is because of the weather. It's just been so cold, and the snow stuck around for so long. January has been a very cold January here in Kentucky this year. I would say averaging in the teens, and sometimes in the single digits as well, and even in the negatives. But here it is, the second load that I delivered that man. The first one I didn't get recorded, but this is a second load, and it comes out to, with all of these, a little less than 4 face cords. So over a cord and then close to another face cord right there piled, which is quite a bit of wood. And he commented to me, or sent me a message on Messenger, and said that's some mighty fine firewood, so he really liked it. I got to looking in the envelope for the money. I could tell it was empty, and Carter was over there snickering when he had the money in his hand, so it scared me for a minute. And now here we are at the Stave mill, and like I said, you can tell the weather's really cleared up a lot. A lot of the snow was gone. I think today was in the 40s or 50s. I was sweating quite a bit doing this. Now, the way that I'm moving this wood here is not what I prefer, but as I mentioned, they recently made it obvious that they do not want you to split at the Stave mill by putting up signs. And so what I did was pick these rounds up, and these are not light. These are big rounds of oak. Matter of fact, that one right there I would say is probably 100 pounds plus, I'm guessing. I struggled with it, actually, and I can lift a lot of weight, but it's not easy to lift these. They're awkward, these rounds. It was very heavy. So here's attempt number 2 with that round. And please don't take it wrong. I'm not trying to brag saying I can lift a lot of weight, but I can lift a lot of weight. But it's what I'm saying is these are not easy for me to lift, even being a pretty strong guy. I met a guy here at the Stave mill today too. Him and his friend, and he walked up to me when he got out, and I can't remember how he said it exactly, but he told us that he watched this on YouTube. He was a big man too. We took some pictures together. He said, "Yeah, I'd like to take a picture. I've been telling my wife about you, and you're a really hard worker. I really enjoy watching you." And he was a very kind man, very friendly. And me and him talked and texted a little bit too. We exchanged numbers, and we got a picture together and stuff. So, and Carter kind of was joking about me with it here. I thought it was kind of funny what he said. But as you can see, we start out like this, and then I try to do a method that Ronald told me about. So here's the man right there. He's a big guy. Makes me look little. We tried a method backing right up to the pile, where your tailgates are, and you can pretty much roll them off. So that's what we tried. Yeah, it kind of made me. He kept joking, saying YouTube star, and because I think we met around 12 people now there at the mill that said they watched me on YouTube. But that man right there is one of the more heartfelt meetings that I've had with somebody, because he wanted to take a picture, and he said that he had told his wife about me and everything, and said that he just so happened to tell, I think, his friend that they wanted to go check the place out, and I was the only one there at the time and when he pulled up. So we got to meet and stuff, and it was really nice meeting him, and he's a really kind man, and he actually wants to give me a log splitter, he said, to help me out. He was saying it's a 34-ton log splitter, like a $4,000 log splitter. And he'd never met me in his life. That just shows you how kind some people are, and wanted to give me ramps, to help me get these rounds up. And he said, yeah, me and my, I can't remember if he said his wife watched me, but he said he watched me, and he said, you're a really hard worker. I enjoy watching, and he talked to me about my beliefs and a little bit, and was asking if I was Christian, with my beliefs, and we talked a little bit and stuff. And he was just a really kind man, and it was really nice talking to him. So I've met now around 12 people or so there at that mill. Actually, the last time me and Carter were there, I didn't get any footage of it at all, but Carter was over helping some guys next to us, and one of them said they watched us, and Carter was over helping them, and they gave him a little Fiskars splitting axe, it looks to be. I've never seen one like it, honestly, because Carter now has 3 Fiskars. He's got 3 Fiskars axes, and he's got one axe that he got from Gary, a boy's axe. And I wanted to mention this too, Gary. You're going to be very disappointed with me, Gary, if you watch this, Gary, and you're probably wondering about it even. But I've still got the double bit axe that I got from Gary. It's out in my shed, but the single bit, I didn't even want to mention this because I was ashamed of it, and I know that the axe meant a lot to him, and he gave it to me. And the handle was custom made. But whenever I started trucking, a guy was supposed to take me to the airport. You know, I'd never been flown in my life at that point, and my wife scares me driving. Honestly, she really does. She can drive, but I always drive. You know, unless she's going by herself somewhere. But anyways, the guy did. I couldn't get him on the phone or anything, and I had to be there to make this flight. So I pulled up to the airport and left my van there, and that axe was in it, and they ended up towing my van. I didn't know how the airport worked, you know. They ended up towing it, and that axe was in it, and I lost that axe. So Gary, I'm really sorry about that. I'm disappointed in myself for it. I'm very sorry, you know, that you were willing, not kind enough to give that to me, something like that, and then I lost it like that. It was not my intention at all, and I hate that I did, because that was one of my favorite axes to swing. It was my favorite axe outside of the Fiskars to swing. I love that axe. The handle was really nice. It split good. Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. And what happened was they towed the van, and then for me to get it back, they were trying to say it would cost like $1,900, because I went with my trainer at the time, so I was gone for about 3 weeks or so before I came home. So it just kept adding up every day. And like I said, I didn't know anything about an airport when I got there. I didn't know where to park or how that worked or anything. So, but anyways, I won't go on too much with that, but that's what happened to that axe, if you're wondering, Gary. I would be swinging it pretty often if I still had it. The handle was in great condition. I didn't bust the handle up. The last time I busted an axe handle was over 2 years ago, and it was the Cobalt axe that I got from Lowe's, and it's in one of my videos. And that was the last time I busted an axe handle splitting. Now, I have busted one since then chopping a tree, which I've found to be the hardest thing on them, honestly. But that's the last one I busted splitting, and that one had a big crack when I bought it. I didn't realize it. I'm not real good at identifying handles and stuff like that, you know. I'd like to get better at it, and at hafting axes, I really enjoy hafting axes, something I haven't done in a while. And one of the reasons why is because I don't have many good handles, and the ones that I was getting from the flea market, I don't intend to use anymore. Kind of like Gary said, they're just not good handles that you can really manhandle, you know. And trust, because that's something that you don't want to happen. You know, I've got a video of a double bit and the head flying off fast, and that's something you don't want to happen. And I do believe, I don't think it was due to overstrike. I think that handle, which there was some material in the eye, the tongue of the handle was not filling in the eye. So that may have been part of it, but at the same time, hickory is very kind of bendy wood. You know, it's got a very high bending strength. That's why it's so good. Not because it's hardwood, but because it's got such a high bending strength. It bends before it breaks. Kind of like iron. You know, they use nails and things when they want it to be able to bend. Screws, they'll break, and iron will bend. And well, hickory is kind of the same way. It has a very high bending strength. So a lot of times, even if you break them, they'll kind of hang on. You know. They'll kind of hang on. The handle will kind of stay attached. But that one, it broke and the head just went flying off, which is extremely dangerous. And so I don't intend to use low quality handles anymore, and or at least, you know, woods outside of hickory. Hickory is what I want to really stick with for the most part. I don't mind to try some other woods, but I think hickory by far is the best around here, at least. Here we are getting home though, and this is kind of the process, you know, now. Which is a lot more work, but it's still not too bad. You see how I moved the wood with that 36-inch handle? That gives you so much more leverage. If you go up to them same rounds right there and try to do it with your hands, it's a lot harder. I use my axe like a pickaroon a lot. I have for years, and that's a big part of why I love a 36-inch handle. And you can see I'm in the gravel too. And no, that is not ideal for you know, if you're really trying to keep your axe from getting damaged. But what I do here, you'll see a lot, is use a flick technique because I'm in the gravel. And part of the reason why is because, as you can see, my yard back there, it's a muddy mess with all that weather that came in. You know, that snow, I knew it would be that way. Once the snow goes away, it leaves behind a muddy mess, and that's exactly what it did. And so that's why I've been splitting in the gravel. And what I'd really like to do later is get a bunch of mulch and kind of keep one area, you know, full of mulch, you know, just a big area. Over there, really back there in the background by that metal, that's where I usually split at, but it's so muddy right now. But I'd like to have a bunch of mulch there. That way, where I split on the ground, you know, it's not as hard on the axe edge, for one, because I'll be hitting mulch, and then, two, just it's not as muddy. I did that a while back at the Stave mill when it was really muddy there. I went in there and I got a bunch of sawdust that they had. They had a big pile of it back there, and I spread it all over and kind of made me like a little arena to split in, and that's what I did. But as you can see, I'm using the flick a lot here. Not every time, but I do it a lot because I with the Fiskars, I don't worry as much if I hit rocks, but I still don't want to do it a whole lot. You know, it is still an axe edge, but it's like I said, I know everybody's different. Everybody has different woods. Everybody has different preferences. I can't even begin to say that or pretend to say that I know how somebody else feels in their body, or that they know how I feel in mine, you know, with my preferences and their preferences. But I can tell you with mine, sharpness is something I've never cared about, honestly, and I split hardwoods. But, you know, if you're wanting to move your wood with an axe, then I can definitely see why you would. And if you've got hand-forged axes and things like that, you know, even with the Adler, you know, I was more worried about the edge on it than I was the Fiskars. It's a lot more expensive axe, and it's a different type of metal on the edge. So it's really a lot harder, if I'm not mistaken. I know that the Fiskar seems to be softer, which really isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's easy to fix. And it's just not needed. I've seen guys make huge deals about their axes being dull for splitting. It's just not needed. But if you want it, I understand that completely too, because everybody splits different, you know. I split different than a lot of people, and I have reasons for why I split the way that I do. But sharpness is something I've never really wanted, because even with that Fiskars, when it's sharp, like a while back I had it, you know, and I made a video. Even when they're razor sharp, they don't really stick in the hardwoods that I split. They won't stick. The profile just won't stick. And maybe it would in softwood. I don't know. I'd have to try it when it's sharp. It would in softwood. But in hardwoods, it will not stick. I can't move the wood with it. And this is kind of something that negates the need to do that. You see me splitting from angles here? That's why I don't care if I move my wood or not. You know, what I'll do, I'm good at splitting from, I'm comfortable at splitting from any angle, really. So that opens up, you know, splits for me in lots of situations that may not be there for other people. So I'm fine at swinging pretty much from any angle. And sometimes I may have to give the you know, piece of wood a kick or something like that to put it in a more, you know, comfortable position, you know, to split it. I don't know if that's the right word, but a easier position to access the wood, you know, to where I'm not going to overstrike or whatever, or I can hit it better. Or, you know, there's lots of things to consider, but when you do it so many times, it's almost like your body, you know, is on co-pilot. It's like it's second nature, really. It really is once you do it so much, like anything else, really. Once you do this thousands upon thousands of swings, and it just kind of almost like your body goes in autopilot, you know. Sometimes I just get lost in thought while I'm swinging, and I'm probably not even really paying too much attention to it, really. Because I get lost in thought a lot when I'm hand splitting. I think about things a lot. Good old dyed elliot right there. It's like spinach for Popeye right there. Not really, but that's what kind of came to my mind when he brought that to me. It was Popeye getting a big can of spinach and eating it. I remember watching that as a little boy all the time. Him getting all strong from the spinach. That's made here in Kentucky, Elliot. Now, I drink diet, which isn't good. You know, I know that sugar is not natural and that's not good. I've been drinking that for a long time, diet. And I do drink a lot of it, too. But anyway, that's off subject here. But as you can see, I am trying to use the flick technique here. I am trying to stay out. Now, this was a tough round, too, right here. So, like the darker ones, once white oak seasons out a little bit, or any oak, I believe, it gets harder and it gets tougher. You know, woods are different. Like sycamore, it's very tough if it's not seasoned. Extremely tough. You know, elm's the same way. Once they season, they're not too bad. Elm or sycamore, either one, isn't too bad once they season. But now, oak is the opposite. It's easier to split when it's not completely dry. Once it dries out a lot, it's much harder to split. Some of this white oak I got here this day, is a good example of what a lot of the white oak I've split is like, really. You see, like this piece I'm pounding on here, it just, white oak isn't always real easy to split. Matter of fact, most of I've had before this stave mill has been really tough, but the stave mill, I'm not sure why, but a lot of it there is pretty easy. It's straight grain. I'm not sure what cut that is, if it's the butt. Michael Paul was telling me that that's the butt, so maybe that's what it is, and he was saying that's really tough. But I guess maybe where a lot of them are straight grain, they're easier. But see that one there, how I'm pounding on it? That is not an easy piece of wood to split, and I'm hitting it hard too. Hitting it with a good axe, and I'm hitting it hard. Now, some of these other ones here later on are tough too. But, yeah, I take much better care if I have a wooden handled axe. Like the one I got from Gary. The single bit that I got from Gary, it didn't have a mark on it, when I lost it. I took better care with it. With the Fisker, sometimes I will reach over a little bit and stuff like that, and take more risk with it than I will with a wooden handle. As I mentioned, the last time I think I've busted one up was from splitting was that Cobalt, and that's been around 2.5 years ago, and I think it was a bad handle. It had a big crack in it that Daniel pointed out to me. But lots of men have their different preference and everything. Sharpness to me doesn't matter a lot because, as I mentioned, the way that I swing from angles, that kind of negates the whole purpose of doing that, because the sharpness, where that comes in handy with splitting, is being able to move your wood. I will use my axe and hook the wood, and move it around. I use my axe like a picaroon a lot, and that 36-inch handle really helps with moving big, heavy rounds, with the leverage. Much easier than doing it by hand. So I use the handle a lot, the axe a lot. And the handle really comes in handy for stuff like that 36-inch handle. But now I know there's guys that are very much against fiberglass. I'm not one of them, but I do enjoy wooden handles as well. I'm just not against fiberglass. I honestly don't feel a big difference. I'm telling the truth when I say I'm not trying to be biased or anything, or trying to persuade anybody, but I don't feel a big difference with my hands. But like that, as far as that Fiskars goes, what really shines with it, I love the handle on it myself. I like the 36-inch. I like the width of it, everything. I like the palm swell, but the head is what really shines. But the handle, too, because like Carter's, it has that same exact head, but it's got quite a bit shorter handle, 28, and you can't generate nearly as much power with it. I tried some bigger rounds and struggled on those with it. And then I grabbed that X27, and it was no problem. So it does give you a lot more momentum. But like I've seen lots of guys make a big deal about, fiberglass handles. And I've had lots of guys, tell me that I'm using a fake axe, a toy axe, throw it down, get a real axe, lots of things. And men talk about weekend warriors. And I'm not at all trying to be offensive in saying that, so please don't take it that way. But I've heard men talk about weekend warriors and amateurs, and these axes are good for teaching. And yes, they are. There's no doubt about it. But another thing they're good for is producing firewood. That's what they're good for. And now I don't mean any offense in saying this at all, but the men that I've seen saying, these axes are toys and they're for they'll use them for teaching and they're for whatever it was they were saying. They like that they can use them and beat them up, at the axes up and stuff like that, abuse them, whatever. I've probably split 10 times more wood than those men, and I'm not trying to say that in a bragging way. But the point I'm making with that is they're for more than just beginners. They're for more than just teaching. They're for more than any of that. Yeah, you can do all that with them, but they're the best axe I've ever found and ever used for producing firewood in a short amount of time. As I said, lots of the men that kind of say all these things about them, I've probably split far more wood than those men. Most of them, far more wood. Probably split more wood in a year than lots of them have in their lifetime. And I'd say, and I'm not trying to be offensive in saying that, but I would guess around 30 to 50 full cords a winter, through the winter. 30 or maybe a year even, because sometimes I'll split in the summer as well. But I would guess 30 to 50 full cords, not face cords, full cords. So I've got a lot of experience with them, and I know better when I hear men sit and say that they're only good for teaching. And without a doubt they are. But if you put that same exact head on a wooden handle, it wouldn't make any difference to me. That's the axe I would prefer, because that head is what shines. Just like with the Adler, Adler has pretty much the same exact head. It's just heavier. It's about 2 pounds heavier. So it is better for splitting bigger rounds because it's beefier, not just heavier. The head is pretty much the exact same design. The heel curves down a little bit more. but the head is, I think, 2.5 pounds heavier, if I'm not mistaken, which is about as heavy as I like one myself. And it's on a 31.5 inch handle, I believe, altogether. The Fiskars are on 36, which I prefer myself. I prefer it. And that's what I was saying before. That same exact Adler, if it was on a 36-inch handle and the head was a little lighter, that's what I prefer. That for me is the kind of the median that I like, because it's perfect in that range. You know, about a 4-pound head, 4.5-pound head on a 36-inch handle, because you can have these long splitting sessions where you're not wearing yourself out, but you've still got enough enough weight to split the wood. And pretty easily too, especially if you have the right profile, because a profile means a whole lot, and that profile it doesn't get stuck, and it splits extremely well. But yeah, so I'm not at all trying to boss anybody or anything like that. Everybody has their own preferences. For me, sharpness doesn't matter too much for the way that I split. I split from angles, so I'm not trying to pick my wood up. I don't use chopping blocks, so I'm not worried about putting it on a chopping block. If I really try to stay out of the rocks and stuff like that, I just use the flick. And it works well for that. But as I said, I don't worry too much with that with my Fiskars either. Now, if I had more of a high dollar axe, yeah, I'd probably worry more about it. Even the Adler, I worried more about it. But I still split and hit rocks with it when I was at the Stave mill. So I'm going to put my tools to work either way. But I do want to take care of them, and I understand why other guys do what they do. So this is just the way that I like doing it, and it works well for me. I like to try to, save as much energy as I can and split in the most efficient, proficient way that I can, to where I'm producing a lot of wood in a short amount of time and saving my energy as well, and, not using any wasted movement, or at least as little wasted movement as I can, and just trying to be smart about it, and you're able to produce a lot of wood like that, and lots of people don't seem to believe it, but I'm just showing you what I do. I'm just showing you. And it's good to be doing firewood again. I missed it a lot when I wasn't doing it. When I was trucking, I missed splitting. I wanted to split pretty much every weekend, and intended to split while I was over the road, but I just didn't have time for it. And I meant no offense earlier either when I was talking about, some of the people that I had seen talking about weekend warriors and stuff in the comments and in videos, and Fiskars are only for beginners or only for teaching stuff like that. That's just not true, That's all I'm trying to say, And I'm speaking on experience in that. I know for a fact it's not true, because the Fiskars, to me, is better than any vintage axe head I've ever come across for splitting wood. And I love putting vintage heads on handles and stuff like that. I still to this day, out of all the axes I've ever tried, the Fiskars is my go-to. Now the Adler is right there behind it. Actually the Adler, for some circumstances, I prefer it. I'll get it for bigger, tougher rounds. It's better for that. But for long splitting sessions and for splitting from angles the way that I do, the Fiskars is perfect. And it doesn't matter, how nice the handle is if the axe isn't the right axe head for the job. If you've got a chopping head, for splitting, it's not going to work very good, and vice versa as well, A splitting head for chopping isn't going to work as well either. But you all be safe out there. I appreciate all of your kind comments and everything. It's great meeting you all at the Stave mill. You all be safe out there. God bless.